There he is. It's Joe Pasevich. I am Joe Pasevich. You are who you are, and we are in Marshfield, Massachusetts on Marshfield Community Media. Good to see you again. It is November 12th, 2025. Day after Veterans Day. Salutations and congratulations and thanks to all the veterans that we honored yesterday. There was a nice little parade in Marshfield, in case you missed it. It went off well. It was very cold and breezy, and a good, brief but meaningful ceremony on Town Green. Everything went well. A little shortened route. The Veterans Park is still not open, so there was a shortened route from the Library Plaza right over to the Town Green at the corner of Moraine and Ocean. And hopefully next year the Veterans Park will be open. We have a few important things to talk about today. A lot going on nationally, a lot going on locally, and again, remember the lesson of control room. If you want to understand what's happening locally, look at what's happening nationally, and if you want to understand what's happening nationally, look at what's happening locally. And we are now living through a period of intense cancel culture. If you watch the interview of Tucker Carlson with Nick Fuentes, you've probably also, if you paid attention to that, then you're probably also aware of the blowback that occurred over that. And again, there's a cancel culture effort where people who want to speak out, if they speak out against the wrong person, remember the old saying, if you want to know who your master is, you'll find out that that's the one person you cannot criticize. So when Tucker Carlson and people like Nick Fuentes raise issues about who's controlling national, domestic, and foreign policies, you'll notice where the most blowback comes from. And so, and at the same time, someone like Fuentes or Carlson is blamed for causing discord and rifts even among Republicans and conservatives and among the general population. Why? Because these are people that ask questions and openly debate ideas. If you do not have the will to openly debate or bring up an issue in politics on any level, even a local level, then what is the point? Then there is no government. Government doesn't function, all right? There is no progress. There is no preservation of your nation, your town, your constitution. It's a living thing. You have to be involved. Do not ever be intimidated against speaking out, whatever side you are on. So just as locally, we had people speak out in the last few elections wanting change, wanting increased openness on the town level. What happened to those people that wanted or advocated for change and open discussion and accountability? We were labeled naysayers. We were the bad guys. We were the bad guys. I actually have something I think I can share with you. Now, when Eric Kelley got elected to the select board, Eric Kelley is a brutally honest guy, and he brought that honesty and desire to put everything out on the table openly. And it was not very well received by the establishment in town. And I can tell you how the establishment reacted, because we monitor social media. You know, myself and other people, we always pay attention to social media, as your officials do. You notice how your officials always make reference to social media now. They never miss a post, it seems, by anybody. And if you monitor social media, you can actually see how some of these people discuss the issues. Here we go. Here's somebody who's one of the old insiders, okay, that's upset by the arrival or the advent of reformers like Trish Simpson and Eric Kelley onto the select board. And this person writes in social media because somebody in the group of reformers who wants to open up the various town boards and committees to some newcomers and to make the process of getting on a board or committee more transparent. Remember, board and committee appointments in the past were handled in such a way that there would be it would be an agenda item on a select board meeting agenda, and it would just say appointment of so-and-so to the zoning board or conservation or whatever. That person in my time would never show up at a select board meeting. There was no discussion of that new appointment. They would just get named to a board or committee. And if you wanted information, like I did occasionally on new members of boards and committees, I'd have to go to town hall and put in a request to see that person's application or resume. That's how it was done in the past. And it seemed to be done in the administrator's office or behind closed doors. Now with Trish Simpson and Eric Kelley on the select board, what happens? There's a whole process of requesting feedback from the different boards and committees on a potential new member. There's discussion about the issue. I mean, the newer boards and committees, new members of boards and committees, or renewals of members of boards and committees typically happens on June 30th. That's sort of the marker date, the anniversary date. Appointments to boards and committees are usually due on June 30th. That's like the last day a board or a committee appointee is serving, member is serving. Then, starting July 1st, their appointments are up. And typically, the terms of various boards and committees are 3 years. So, in the past, there really was no discussion about new board and committee members. But because Trish Simpson and Eric Kelley are now on the select board, now all of a sudden now we need to observe the official procedure. We need to have open discussions. And in fact, all of that led to a long delay in the reappointment or new appointment process. And it finally got done, like months later. And it finally got done. But the reaction of some insiders to the changes that are happening now that two outsiders, real novices in terms of public office, and Trish Simpson, in her case, she's a real novice in terms of just being involved in town government. She's got the will and the interest and the experience as a regular citizen, and that can always create a fresh start and a fresh atmosphere, okay? It's a breath of fresh air, as the old cliche goes. But the insiders don't like it. And when the reformers, or the people who support these reform candidates, new outsider candidates, when they want to express themselves, or the way they react to reformers and supporters of new outside fresh blood getting in, here's an example of one of their reactions. Like somebody on the reformers group was writing, has had some opinions about what's going on in town hall. And here's what one of the old guard insiders wrote to this reformer. "Who are you and who appointed you as some sort of blind watchdog?" See? New people getting involved in town government. That's how the insiders greet them. That's how they, whenever you go to a meeting, the old insiders would say in the years past, "Oh, we want people to come to town meeting. We want you to participate. Oh, yeah, it's open meeting. Come on, everybody." But then when people finally get in and start demanding accountability and requesting records, this is the reaction you get. "Who appointed you as some sort of blind watchdog?" Myself, people like Pam Keith, we've done dozens of information. Johnny Cusick, we've done dozens of information requests. All right? Financial information, legal information. And oftentimes, I've had to struggle through multiple levels of appeals up into the Secretary of State's office to get the records that I want. It's that way sometimes with the Housing Authority. I'm a commissioner, and sometimes I have to do public records requests to get information I should have readily available to me. But that's how it is when you're going up against the insiders. So here's an insider reacting to somebody asking too many questions, apparently. Why are your name in misguided comments all over the Marshfield forum? That's a Facebook discussion forum. The answer? You are a mouthpiece, a mere puppet for the old guard. Parentheses, Santa Claus and others. That's a reference, a derogatory reference to Bob Parkus. The anti-establishment, and those who unfortunately don't know any better, a small fraction in our town, and somehow through sheer volumes of the crap that you shovel, the aforementioned Facebook's algorithms have appointed you an all-star contributor. So there's a person who's actively involved on a Facebook discussion forum to the point where they're recognized as being a regular contributor. But to this person, that's like a bad sign, like you're too active. And hence your crap rises to the top. I, for one, this is an insider now talking to a relatively new arrival who's actively engaged in town government, wants to express opinions and get answers and engage in discussion. So this insider writes, I for one am sick of hearing from you. I have no sake in your negativity and your gaslighting. So that's how newcomers are welcomed by the old establishment. That's the threat that they feel. And the reference to Bob Parkus, I've met people who are active now, who are on the side of increased openness, increased participation. And they tell me, Joe, when it was you and Bob Parkus getting up at town meeting, as it was before us, it was Rusty Tremonti, George Shaw, Lou Bonazos, other people who are, Pat Bean, who are getting up at town meeting asking questions, and others, forgive me for forgetting your names. People thought of us as crazies. We're the crazies. You know what they say about us now? You were right. Joe, you and Bob were right. And that's what's happening. And that's the kind of change that some people in town cannot deal with right now. Anyway, so with regards to that, the temerity that we have, the guts, the balls to speak out and ask questions is creating a lot of bad reactions. And one of the biggest bad reactions, and the most notable one recently, has been an attempted recall of Eric Kelley. And it failed, by the way, in case you didn't know. The recall effort on Eric Kelley did fail. They did not get the required signatures. Nobody even knows if they were getting 15% from each of the precincts in terms of the signatures. They got over 2,500 signatures. They needed something like 20 or 3,500 signatures. They did not get them in the allotted time. But they started out with an affidavit. This is the affidavit form that was filed with the town clerk's office. Under Article 8 of the town's charter, we, the undersigned voters of the town of Marshfield, do swear and affirm under the pains of perjury. In other words, if we're lying, you can put us in, you can prosecute us. Perjury is a crime, okay? That Eric Kelley, an elected member of the Marshfield Select Board, should be recalled therefrom for engaging in the conduct described below. So ... And here he goes. These are the grounds of recall for Eric Kelley. This is what they swore to and affirmed. Under the pains of perjury, as Marshfield Select Board Chair, Eric Kelley fast-tracked a politically motivated hearing targeting Police Chief Tavares in June of 2025. That's a lie. Chief Tavares called me twice. I was threatened. I reported it to the Select Board. The then acting town administrator apparently informed the Select Board that this really should be on the agenda. Complaints that come in about the behavior of a town employee should be addressed. I think they must be addressed. What's the procedure? Nobody knew at the time, at least on the Select Board. Eric Kelley hadn't been through it. Maybe Steve Darcy had seen it. Trish Simpson certainly was brand new to the board. She didn't know. But apparently the acting town administrator said, yeah, it's gotta be a hearing. Not a hearing, but a meeting. And under law, apparently what happens is the person who's got a complaint against him as a town employee automatically gets an executive session. In other words, they get to sit down behind closed doors with the select board members and talk about the complaint. That's the first step to resolving a complaint from a citizen about a town employee. That's how Eric Kelley was advised to proceed. Also under the law, the person this happened to Chief Simpson, if you might remember a couple of years ago. There was some complaint, and they said, Chief, you can have an executive session with the select board. And they apparently would not let him have an open session. That is an option. The person who's being complained about can say to the select board, you know what? All right, but I want this meeting to not be an executive session, but be an open public session. The person who's the subject of the complaint has that option. So I don't know who communicated it to who, but Chief Tavares elected to have the discussion of the complaint put in an open session. And then it got publicized very widely, very quickly, in a very, very efficient way. Somebody organized the spreading of that information very quickly. It went out on the tom-tom, as they say, real quick. And then you had that June 30th meeting in the select board's chambers at Town Hall. Did Eric Kelley fast-track that? No. He, on the advice of acting town administrator, he's following procedure. What he understood to be the procedure. Eric Kelley even admitted during the public meeting that he really hadn't been through this before, and he relied on a memo supplied by town council dated June 30th, a memorandum. Okay? This was issued sometime during the day on June 30th, and it was basically followed. Did Eric Kelley fast-track it? No. It was the next available meeting when it could still be put on the agenda. That's not fast-tracking it. And how is it politically motivated? If a citizen has a complaint against a town employee, why shouldn't it be heard? What happened to the Me Too movement? When we should believe every woman who makes a claim of harassment or something. What about a citizen is being harassed or threatened? Isn't that citizen entitled to be heard? Especially when it's involves somebody on the police department, people who carry guns and can lawfully shoot you and kill you? Of course, it's not being fast-tracked and it's not politically motivated. So the first item on this thing is just embellished, exaggerated, and not true. Mr. Kelley has also politically targeted other town employees and regularly displayed incompetence and a lack of preparation for select board meetings. How do you know that? How do you know what Eric Kelley is receiving in his packet of information before a meeting? You don't know that. Especially when somebody's new at the job. You know, how would you know that? And how are other people politically targeted? I know that Eric Kelley is honest to a fault, and he does tend to ask questions directly of people in town government. I've heard that, but it's not political targeting. Maybe trying to understand the process of how, say, a department handles a matter under their jurisdiction. He goes and he asks questions. He's not afraid to ask questions. Why not? Mr. Kelley has on multiple occasions engaged in conduct that violates Massachusetts open meeting law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 to 25. How do you know that? How do you know he has violated open meeting law? Unless a ruling is made by the Attorney General or the District Attorney, as it was done in the past, that open meeting law was violated, how can you say he has violated it? As one person in town said, open meeting law violations occur all the time. You see oftentimes boards and committees maybe not filing the agendas, maybe they're worded slightly incorrectly, or they left out a detail, but there's no like backroom dealing of gross and blatant violations of open meeting law. And again, it hasn't even been determined. Who's determined that open meeting law has been violated? But that's what they claim has happened. They swore under the pains and penalties of perjury that Everett Kelley has violated open meeting law. It's not true. He's also initiated the removal of several highly qualified volunteer board and committee members without giving those volunteers the opportunity to be heard. Well, we went through an extended process where everybody was told, all right, we're not going to rush board appointments, board and committee appointments and reappointments like they've done in the past. We're going to be more open about it. This was dragged out for months. And everybody was notified, okay, you have until a certain date to reapply if you're a current member. So even current members were invited to reapply. And some boards were invited to give feedback to the select board on what they thought about people who wanted to be on the boards and committees. Of over 70 appointments, 70 board and committee appointments that are positions that are appointed by the select board, how many did they ultimately replace or change? I think it's 5. 5. And the people that were appointed, in some cases in replacing somebody who left the board or committee, were all qualified. Further, Mr. Kelley replaced a number of those volunteers with friends and supporters without disclosing his relationship with those persons. Really? Okay. What kind of disclosure do you think is necessary? Why does he have to disclose his relationship? If there's a financial relationship where someone's going to benefit from it, yes, under state law, you need to be careful about that in terms of what kind of gifts you receive from somebody and what kind of interactions you have with them. You cannot have conflicts of interest. Look it up. But because someone's a friend of somebody, what? If we started telling select board members and other people in town that they couldn't have dealings with their friends. Remember, Marshfield's not a giant city. Most people know dozens, if not scores of hundreds of people. Most people are friends. There's a lot of friend relationships. That's got nothing to do with compliance with law, and it cannot be construed as an illegal activity. It's ridiculous. And then, of course, when they finally got the petitions to do the actual recall after filing the affidavit and then getting the petition and going out to collect 3,500 signatures, they were handing out little flyers. I'm doing this because I want you to see that this was all a cancel culture movement. This was about being pissed about a loss of control, about a loss of status quo, of the way of doing things, the good old boy network that we had here. That's what it's about. It's about a loss of party control. So they handed out these little flyers, more lies. And if you saw people collecting signatures with the little clipboards for this recall, you saw them like I saw them at Shaw's, because I was also petitioning for the repeal of MBTA zoning law. And I would see these people standing in front of me, blocking people's access to where I had my petitions, interfering with me, and then getting in people's faces as soon as they stepped onto the curb to go into the store, sticking a petition in their faces and saying, Everett Kelley tried to remove the chief of police and he doesn't support the schools, among other accusations and lies. They were extremely aggressive, like nothing I've ever seen. And then they would, if you insisted, you might get a little flyer from them. And it would include things like police. It would include 6 items related to why they're doing the recall. And here's one. Police Chief Phil Tavares, top of the list. Eric Kelley has used his position to unlawfully threaten and undermine Police Chief Phil Tavares and Building Commissioner Andrew Stewart. How? It's not true. It's false. Playground accessibility. Eric Kelley has obstructed efforts to make playgrounds accessible for all children. That's a blatant lie. He wanted to be careful about the process so that money wasn't wasted and we didn't have to revisit the issue anytime in the near future that it would get done. Eric Kelley has opposed community initiatives, including Purple Heart recognition. How is that a community initiative? Eric Kelley has a policy. He doesn't think the select board should be used for proclamations. Is he against veterans? Is he against suicide prevention? Is he against opioid addiction? Of course not. Is he against Pride Month? No. Why would he be? Is he against using the office of select board to put people in the spotlight on the spot and to somehow interpret how somebody responds to one of these proclamation attempts as being somehow indicative of what they think in their heart and their mind? To politicize serious issues like this is not appropriate in Eric's mind. Support allocations, make it easy for these kinds of initiatives to be carried out in the community to address these issues. Of course, Eric Kelley is for that. Open meeting law. Eric Kelley has violated the open meeting law on several occasions and is the subject of 5 pending complaints. Whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty, right? Again, no violations. Town boards and committees. Eric has chosen unqualified political cronies. How can you prove that? What makes you say that? Give some examples. None. Eric Kelley has opposed adequate funding for education, including capital repairs to school buildings. That's a complete lie. A complete lie. So these people have no scruples, and they're bearing false witness. And who was one of the people who was one of the biggest proponents for this? It was none other than Patty Riley, former select board member. Here's what Patty Riley said in an interview on WATD.
We are going to have a conversation about the recall election, hopefully that they're going to put together here. That's what this group is working toward here in Marshfield to recall.
Notice what Christine James is saying on this when she was interviewing Patty Riley for this on the issue of the recall. Did you hear Christine James, what she was saying? Did you hear what she said? She said, hopefully. She said, hopefully there'll be a recall. Hopefully you'll get enough signatures and you'll get the job done. Did you hear that? Hopefully. She said, hopefully. So ATD's people are obviously on board. We're on board with this.
Current Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Eric Kelley, joining me in studio, Patricia Riley. I knew you years ago when you were on the board, the select board here in Marshfield. Now, recall Marshfield, big group with a big project going on. You're trying to recall current select board chair Eric Kelley.
Did you hear that? Christine James says it's a big group. Not really. But that's Christine James, and that's WATD. Very biased. And they promoted this very much. And they gave over half an hour of airtime to people promoting the recall, and nowhere near as much equal time for people who opposed the recall or wanted to address or were against the recall. It was very slanted, very lopsided. And on their Facebook page and on their .com page, they had all these tiles, the recall tiles, to call attentions to it. That's how WATD handled it.
First, why?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. Eric Kelley is going to cost this town a lot more than just the money that he's already costing us. We don't have a town administrator. He is trying to sneak things in through backdoor meetings. He's not supporting the schools. He is really going to cause the real estate values in this town to plummet. He's the opposite of the transparent board. He's not transparent.
He's sneaky. He's costing you money. No proof, no examples. All just invective and vicious accusations.
He's the opposite of everything he said he was going to be when he first got on the select board.
Okay, now these are, I don't want to sound like I'm a lawyer in a courtroom. I know you're an attorney. These are a lot of allegations. Do you and your group have information to back this up? Is there a website or Facebook page people can go to?
There's both, actually. They can go to recallmarshfield.com and see snippets of meetings and see with their own eyes and hear with their own ears what Eric has been doing, including especially the meeting with Chief Tavares, where he tried to throw the chief under the bus by having a meeting behind closed doors on a complaint that wasn't investigated.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Eric Kelley was trying to do. He was trying to get the complaint investigated. But the chief came into the June 30th hearing and he flipped the script and basically wouldn't talk about the complaint. Instead tried to make Joe out to be the bad guy. Completely flipped the script and took over the meeting and was insubordinate to his bosses. Eric didn't flip anybody under the bus or throw anybody under the bus. He admitted, he said, I've never gone through this before. We're trying to find out what happened. And an investigation means somebody would gather up all the information in both sides of the stories, but it was voted down. Why? There was a crowd of people in the room, for one thing, yelling, swearing, threatening, taking over the meeting. And of course, Steve Darcy, you know how he's going to vote. He's always going to vote with the status quo. And I think Trish Simpson was probably scared. And she just saw the mob and said, yeah, I'm out of here, basically. Ask her what's going through her mind.
And it failed miserably when the chief decided to open up those doors to the public so that they could see that Eric was just trying to carry out his own personal agenda.
Okay, and that was 400 or 500 people showed up to back up the chief?
There were a lot of people. It was packed. It was a packed room. It was a packed hall. There were people outside. People couldn't get in. The smart thing to do would have been to postpone the meeting and have it in an open forum once the chief said he wanted it open, but he didn't. He held it in a crowd.
It was an open meeting. It was supposed to be an executive session, and the chief got his open meeting. So Patty Riley is completely distorting the facts, completely.
Room. He was not prepared for the meeting. He hadn't read all the materials for the meeting. He certainly wasn't comfortable with the idea of having an open meeting. And he really was going to cost his town money by trying to get a special investigator on this to investigate the matter more, where he could have used his own people, the ones that he actually had in office, to investigate it, to find out that it was nothing more than a...
That's the point. He was trying to get an investigation. He was trying to get both sides of the story. But he basically just shouted down, hooting and hollering and swearing. There was nothing that could be done. He tried. And this Patty Riley's trying to tell you a totally different version of what happened.
Frivolous complaint.
Now, it's interesting. This is one of the things that's come up. There were three things that I've heard come up with other people talking about this issue. The issue in the hearing with the police chief, board appointments, and board protocol. There have been complaints in all those areas. Has anybody from your group tried to talk with Eric and say, we've got concerns about this?
Absolutely.
Can we talk with you? And how's that gone?
Absolutely. When it came to the boards and committees, I actually asked Mr. Kelley myself, what were you looking for? What qualifications for example, the Town Administrative Search Committee? And his response is, I want people I'm comfortable with. And that was it. No qualifications, no kind of experience. He wanted his buddies, his cronies, and the people he had
Part
selected
of being
to be...
comfortable with appointing somebody is knowing that they're qualified. It's a completely normal response, in this case by Eric Kelley, completely normal. Nothing suspicious about that. Of course he wants to be comfortable. You want to be comfortable the person you're selecting for a board or a committee can do the job. And she makes it out to be some kind of nefarious, evil deed by Eric Kelley.
On that board.
Now, what about board protocol? I know there have been some complaints about open meetings not being conducted the correct way. We also had some emails here. People were talking about when a large group of appointments was made, it was done on a Friday afternoon, which people were upset about. I think the notice went up on a Monday. It was like 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon.
That's right. Town hall wasn't even open at the time. This was for, I think, 70 positions for boards and committees. Their meetings are
The process was delayed over and over again to give people chances to send in applications, to give the receiving boards and committees time to look at them. It was delayed over and over and over again. Finally, something had to be done. People had to get appointed. Boards and committees, especially the zoning board, had business to conduct. It was delayed over and over again, and it finally got done. It was very clear who were the candidates.
normally on Monday nights at about, I think it's 5, sometimes it's 5:30, sometimes it's 7. But they decided to, on a Monday, to have it on a Friday at 2, when many people are still working. There was absolutely no discussion. Even though one of the selectmen moved for discussion, Mr. Kelley shut it down immediately. So all he did is set a name, someone seconded it, and it was voted. We don't know why those names were brought forward. There are a lot of names that weren't brought forward. There were some people who weren't reappointed and never told why. Again, this is under, for someone who claimed he wanted to be.
When a board or committee member's position has expired, the people who have the power to appoint somebody to that board or committee can do it. That's their lawful duty, and that's their lawful power that they have to do it. You can second guess it, like we've second guessed dozens of board and committee appointments over the last couple of decades, but apparently Patty Riley, even while she was a select board member, had no problem with that process, right?
Transparent. He really was not transparent. And not only that, he, just like when he didn't recuse himself from the police chief hearing, even though the complainant was a very good friend of his, and he's made it public many, many times that this guy is a very good friend of his, he appointed people to boards and committees which were his friends.
Do you see any other solution to this situation besides a recall? Can I chalk it up to a learning curve with a relatively new board member?
No, he's been on the board for a year and a half, and I honestly, when I've tried to talk to him about this, for example, he's been amending agendas at the last minute, so people don't know what's going to be actually at select board hearings. Mm-hmm. He told me that he could do whatever he wants with his.
That's just plain false. That's false. Nobody changes the agenda at the last minute. That would be so obvious. How is it changed in the last minute? Again, no examples, just a blanket, wild accusation by Patty Riley, the partisan Patty Riley, who works for the district attorney. She's an insider. She likes the status quo. She's been employed by the district attorney's office at a couple of different counties. She was a select board member. She was somebody who always complained that whenever the citizens got questioning issues and wanted action taken by the town, say, for example, on combating or checking 40B projects, she would always go, oh, no, we can't fight. We're going to get sued. So she doesn't care about the voters. The concerns of the voters and the people who want to preserve Marshfield, it's not one of her top priorities.
The exact words are, I can do what I want with the agenda. So I think his arrogance is really getting in the way of him doing a good job.
So tell me about the recall, the logistics. I know there's several portions. First, there had to be, I believe, 100 signatures to start the process, and that was successful. Now what? Now I believe you have to gather, over 3,000 more? That's
right. There were a lot of people angry, especially after the meeting with the chief, but also, he didn't.
This is an important point. Chief Tavares could have shut down this recall and the acrimony and the division that it's causing. All he had to do is say, don't use me as your poster child for this recall. You know, when they were handing out these crazy flyers with these crazy unfounded accusations, okay, and as Patty Riley says here, he was the catalyst for this whole recall. And they put him, the chief, on the top of the list, that Eric Kelley used his position to unlawfully threaten and undermine Police Chief Phil Tavares. Did nothing of the sort. Nothing of the sort. Was following procedure, responding to a citizen complaint. And for Patty Riley to lie like this is a disgrace. That's the real disgrace.
Support proclamations. Mr. Kelley did not support our veteran, the people who have been wounded and killed in action, our servicemen and women, by supporting Purple Heart Month. He didn't, you know, he's a member of our, he's representing our town. And
So Purple Heart Month is the only way to express support for our veterans? Really? There's no other way to do that, huh? Is that right, Patty? Right? What would you know about
he's
that?
not supporting these basic awareness programs, proclamations to try and help marginalized people. For example, the Pride Month, or he didn't support Opiate Addiction Month. He didn't support Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. There's a lot that he is not doing, and it got a lot of people very angry. So after the hearing with the chief, which really just was the catalyst that brought a lot of people together, over 400 people signed up to help with this recall. Mm-hmm. And it takes a while for this to happen. You have to draft an affidavit, support it to the town. The town comes back, and you have to get 100 signatures. Well, we got more than we got. The ones that are eligible, we want to get more than enough. It will be before the spring election. I know there's some people who are concerned. It's like, oh, well, a special election is going to cost us money. But to be honest, this is costing us more. For example, Mr. Kelley, when it came to town boards and committees, he ignored, we're paying $14,000 to the Collins Center to advise us on how to get in.
The Collins Center was hired. They have done their job in terms of bringing about nominees to be the new town administrator. So for Patty Riley to say that Eric Kelley threw away $14,000 and didn't want to pay attention to the Collins Center, what are you talking about? The Collins Center was hired. They've probably already been paid. They've already done their job. The town administrator search committee, from what I understand, is done. They're just waiting now for the select board to look at the nominees, the list of nominees that are going to be interviewed. What is she talking about? Eric questioned the process because the Collins Center took over the process and wouldn't allow some of the search committee members to have more free reign in terms of asking questions. There was no attempt to cast a broader net to advertise more broadly for more potential candidates for the town administrator position like the town of Norton did. They advertised broadly and got like 100 applicants. They had a massive pool to choose from. But in the case of the way it was done, apparently there was a very select pool that was used to choose the finalists. I think Eric probably had a problem with that. But what Patty's saying, Riley is saying, is complete fabrication, complete misrepresentation. Full of crap. I've had to skip ahead a little bit because I'm running out of time.
He's just said, I think it's about time. And that, you know, people can see this. It's on the, again, it's in the meetings. It's that one where he tried to arbitrarily, just on his own, double the fees was on the the September 8th meeting. And it kind of, the other select board members, based on what?
No, Eric Kelley wanted to make more money through the rental of certain town properties. And he thought that getting $50 for renting out an entire park or whatever was just not right. So he was asking, he wanted to create a debate about how much we should be charging if we're going to rent out certain town properties. There's nothing about just arbitrarily increasing fees. That's not going to happen. That didn't happen.
If you're just tuning in here, we're talking to Patricia Riley. She's a resident here in Marshfield, former member of the Board of Selectmen a number of years ago, and she is with this group, Recall Marshfield, and they want to recall and have a recall election for current chairman of the board of the Select Board here in Marshfield, Eric Kelley. One more time, your Facebook page or website.
Again, they can, if people are interested in learning more or helping out or even signing the petition, they can go to recallmarshfield.org. And there's a website where they can get more information, or Facebook page, and that's Marshfield We the People.
Thank you very much. Again, that's Patricia Riley. Thanks for keeping us updated. Let us know if you get those signatures. I'm sure this is going to be an ongoing story.
Thank you so much, Christine.
You're very welcome.
For having us.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We'll put this up online as well. I'm Christine James, 95.9 WATD, 5.9 WATD.
Yeah, Christine James and WATD did a good job trying to promote this and keeping it advertised on their website and on their Facebook page. Good job, WATD. That's real. No bias there, right? Nothing like that. Well, who was Patricia Riley? Remember Patricia Riley? Remember Patricia Riley when she was a select board member and I got the select board on tape when they were meeting a consultant down in Plymouth? And the consultant was there to sort of like a group encounter, a naval contemplation exercise or whatever you want to call it. And this consultant came from Suffolk University and was trying to increase the awareness of the select board and to discuss issues affecting the town. And the consultant said, let's talk about the things that are nice about Marshfield. Select board, what do you consider to be nice about Marshfield? Oh, there's the ocean, there's the stores, there's the shops, there's the restaurants, there's the environment, there's the marshes, there's the rivers. Oh, it's wonderful. And there's a diversity of housing and people and all different backgrounds. What a utopia it is. Wonderful. Now, Mike Moresco was also a member of the select board at the time, along with Katie O'Donnell. Then the consultant said, let's talk about the challenges that Marshfield has. What are some of the negative things? What are some of the weaknesses that we're experiencing we have to deal with in Marshfield? Remember that? Remember Patty Riley's response when she was asked, what are some of Marshfield's weaknesses? Do you remember that?
Few of these, but we have to put some up with the process. Weaknesses.
Conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
Finding out more and more towns have them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We have a segment on a handful of folks that are, I don't know what the correct word is, but they work against everything we stand for.
So we would call them
Anti-government.
Anti-government naysayers.
an anti-government, and we can also call them interest groups because that's another
I think
part.
that I might phrase it too as frequently I feel that it may be a very vocal minority and a silent majority. I think the majority does come out, at the polls.
So you see, Katie O'Donnell's approach to it is that, well, you have a vocal minority, you have a silent majority, but Patty Riley's response was, the problem with Marshfield is we have conspiracy theorists. And what do you call these people? Patty Riley's response, they're anti-government. Patty Riley, I think she's an attorney. Doesn't she have read the Constitution? Doesn't she know the government is of the people and by the people? Does she get that? I guess not. To her, anybody who speaks up is anti-government. Anybody who supports like Eric Kelley and Trish Simpson and wants more openness and transparency and let's break up the old way of doing things and make it more open and to everybody, you're a problem. You need to be canceled. And that's why I say you can relate what's happening in Marshfield to what's happening nationally, because when people express themselves, they get canceled. There's an attempt to cancel them. And that's what Patty Riley and people like her apparently are all about. They want to cancel you. You're not going along with the program. Anyway, in the time I have, I want to close out with this little bit. You notice that we're looking for a new town labor council, and so the select board has been interviewing attorneys to be the new labor council. We had John Clifford as labor council for some time. And then when Trish Simpson got elected, he basically withdrew. I think he saw the writing on the wall that there were going to be some changes. At the same time, I anticipated that we were going to get a new town council. Bob Galvin was going to be replaced along at the same time as John Clifford. That's what was going to happen. I thought we were on the road to having that happen, because we do need changes, in my opinion. And so the select board was interviewing people about being the new labor council. And here's how that went. If I can play this. A woman named, what's her name? Oh, I forget her name now. Well, here's a woman here that was being interviewed.
Yes, I'm wondering if you can tell us if you've had any past professional dealings with our previous labor council, John Clifford?
Yeah, John Clifford and Jamie and I. So municipal law is a small bar, as Bob knows. It's a very small bar, and then the labor and employment component of that is even smaller. So I think I know almost every labor and employment municipal lawyer. But John and Jamie and I have known each other now probably 8-10 years. I've worked for them. For example, I've done investigations for them, because apart from being municipal labor council and sometimes general counsel actually too, I do investigations too when there's something that perhaps labor council or HR can't investigate for various reasons. They pull in someone independent. And so I've worked for them in the past. Likewise, I've had Jamie do investigations for me in the past. But I think it's a very professional relationship. I would never tell her how I would want an outcome to be. I say, let the facts lead you to where you go. And I would never be led anyway either. So we've worked together several times, I'd say.
Okay, thank you.
So Trish Simpson, let's just call this woman Kate. I'm sorry, and the name slipped my mind. So Trish Simpson asked this woman who's competing, she's a nominee, she's an applicant to be the town's new labor council. Have you ever worked with John Clifford, the guy that we've had before? She goes, yeah. Basically, yeah. She kind of qualifies it, tells a little bit about that. Oh, okay. That was Trish's question for this candidate. Then the other candidate comes up to be asked the same question.
I was just wondering, have you ever had a professional relationship with our previous labor attorney, John Clifford?
No.
Okay.
I've heard good things about him, though.
Okay.
But I've never met him. I've just heard from the area that he's been here a long time.
Okay. Thank you. I'm good.
We're kind of in a small world, so.
I know.
I have actually had many cases with Fedorov, though.
So he says, that's the woman's name, her last name is Fedorov. So he says, well, I have worked with Ms. Fedorov, but John Clifford, no, I haven't. That was what Trish Simpson, that was basically the only question she had. Apparently she's going to base her decision upon those responses. And let's see how that goes, if this is the right clip.
I thought they both interviewed really well, but for me, we've seen the work that she's been doing over these last several months, and she also has the lowest hourly rate proposed of all the firms that submitted a bid. So just the body of work that she's done, that's kind of the tiebreaker for me. And I just think that her approach really turns down the temperature in negotiations, which is really important. And we're going to have some tough negotiations ahead. And again, we've seen the work that she's done. I like having a sample size to kind of base a vote on. So, that's why, I would lean towards hiring Meade, Tallerman, and Costa.
Okay. Trish?
Well, I'd like to go in a different direction, and I would like to go with the Dupere, Attorney Dupere.
that all you want to comment on?
That's all I want to say.
Okay.
And that's all Trish had to say. She wants to go in a different direction. Kind of sends a message, doesn't it? That you voted for change and now you're going to get a change. You're going to get people switched out. You're going to get new, fresh blood in there. And by the way, how is it that Fedorov and Galvin and John Clifford, they all seem to know each other? Well, you might think so because they went to Scituate and they sold themselves as a collaborative team, basically. They tried to sell themselves to the town of Scituate as being a collaborative team. And here's what happened, a little snippet of what happened in Scituate when they went before the select board in Scituate recently. So there you see Mr. Clifford and Mr. Galvin selling themselves at the same time to the Scituate Select Board. And I think that's the same woman there, Fedorov. Correct me if I'm wrong, and I will correct myself, but I think that's it. They sell themselves as a team. And when John Clifford and when Bob Galvin brought in Mr. Peter Moran, as he's the former Norwell town administrator, now retired, again, they weren't afraid to advertise the fact that they all knew each other, they all collaborated, they're all part of the team. And of course, Steve Darcy's all in favor of having a team, the team, right? That's how they operate. They all know each other.
Labor Council here for 8 years. I think one of the things that our track record speaks to really well is the fact that we get back to people, we try to minimize litigation. And I think we've had a successful run. The reason that we wanted to partner with Bob Galvin is because we have this identical structure in the town of Rockland. We are town council in Rockland, have been since 2008. They needed land use and planning and zoning work. I recommended Bob. Bob interviewed for the job. Bob is.
Well, you get the idea. They're like a collaborative team. They know each other. They work together, all right? And I'll play more of this clip, but what's interesting about that clip is that the way they sell themselves to the Scituate Select Board, and they basically are telling the Scituate Select Board, and we'll play it next time, is that we're going to give you talking points to deal with the unruly residents, basically the way it sounds to me. But I'll play you that next time I see you. That's going to do it for me. I'm Joe Pasevich for Control Room. Have a really good weekend. When you see me, stay warm. When you see me around, say hi, okay? But that's how they sell themselves. They all know each other. Get it? You getting it now? Time for change.